Hello and welcome to the Lutro Custom Sleeving Tool Guide. Today is just going to be a demonstration on how to actually use the tool. And if I can ever get used to saying my name in front of a product, that would be the day, because it is extremely awkward. You'll notice very much I might say or the, or everybody says the, but I might say a bunch of weird words in between stuff because I'll be honest with you, I am not a public speaker. And even though you don't see me, it's extremely awkward for me. So I'd ask that you bear with me and hopefully I don't bore you to death. It's simply going to be a quick demonstration. I'm going to use some paracord here, use some MDPC sleeving, and that's it. Simply show you how the tool works. And most of you that have already been sleeving kind of understand just by looking at the pictures, but everybody else that hasn't sleeved before is looking at them and thinking to themselves, that's great, that's a piece of plastic, why would I pay $10 for that? Think of it as a ruler guide. If you've seen most of the professional sleeving jobs, the heat shrink is really straight. What's awesome about that is it makes it look professional, it makes it look clean, and it makes it look sleek. And of course everybody that's interested in sleeving anyway has also seen a bad sleeving job. The sleeving is too long, or not the sleeving is too long, but the heat shrink is too long, it's uneven, and it just looks sloppy. And if you're going to put money into something, and if you're really going to invest into a sleeving job, you got to think that you're at least going to spend around $100 just in sleeving stuff, and if it's your first time, some tools and stuff like that. So why not take the time and the patience and the effort and the energy to make your investment into something that's going to look cool in your case worthwhile? So this would be an example of straight heat shrink. This tool and the guides that I will be doing here, coming out here soon, will completely allow you to do that. It's not as hard as it looks. It's very simple as long as you have a guide, not me, the tool here, to actually help you. So to get started here, let's get these out of the way as cool as they look, and let's find some sleeving. I'm actually going to be doing a cord for my Aspros mod, and it'll be in white. So I have some custom made cables here. I suppose I should show you one of those first. I got a whole, I'll show you actually the whole pile I have here. Now the trick is finding one that is double-sided, because some of these aren't. They were made for the power supply and they were made to be soldered on. So you have your wire. Again, I'm not going to go completely in-depth into my sleeving methods with this. I am simply going to sleeve a cable. It's a whole other thing when you have somebody watching you, let alone a whole bunch of somebody. So we're just going to tap that with a little flame to sleeve the end, or to seal the end for that matter, and measure it out. Now everybody has a little bit different method in doing this. It doesn't need to be difficult, it doesn't need to be hard, it's actually incredibly simple once it's broke down. Now you might be thinking, why didn't I just have these pre-done? Well, I could have done that. That would actually have been a really smart idea. I really have no argument against that. So, we're just going to put the sleeving on. And, I've seen some crazy methods for putting some sleeving on here. And I've seen people use straws and all sorts of weird and wacky ways, and really it doesn't need to be that hard, because it's not. If you measured it right, it will just go right on there, and that's about what you're going to be looking at. So we're at this stage. This is where the tool becomes important. Let me grab a piece of heat shrink here. You got your two pieces of heat shrink, one for each side. If I can get that in the camera there, I got a small area to work with here. And you grab your tool. Now, it is really easy to set this up. You're grabbing, hopefully there we go. You can see that there's two prongs right there. If I can get a better angle. There we go. You are taking the tool the little divot side of the tool, and you're setting it right into that notch. Again, you're just putting it into that notch right there. Hope you guys are enjoying my chewed on fingernails. I tend to do that quite a bit. And you hold it there with your thumb. You guys get a good shot of that. And I'm making sure it's square right on it. And I pull the sleeve. Pulling the sleeve right up to it. And then I'll pinch the sleeve right where my fingers are, and I'll let go of this. Now this is exactly where I want it. I'm going to straighten out the pin here a little bit so everything's straight. The whole time I'm holding this so this sleeve doesn't move. Grabbing the piece of heat shrink and trying to look at the camera and do this at the same time. It's a whole new thing for me. And I'm not moving away, I'm simply just grabbing the heat gun for this. And once it's on there, I will try not to blast your ears with this thing, so I'm going to bring it over here. And the trick to this is I'm holding it the entire time, and I only shrunk it a little bit, and I'm going to readjust the shrink right up, hopefully, and get it to angle on here a little bit, and there we go, sharpen right up. I'm going to get this heat shrink right up to that pin, the same 2 pins that I brought the tool up to earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink the rest of it right now. Making sure that I hit every single part of the shrink. And then I always blow on it. You can put it in front of a fan. There's really a bunch of different methods for this, but the simplest and easiest and the least expensive tends to be just, you know, blowing some cool air on it. And once it's cooled, you can kind of adjust it the way you need to. See if I can hold this up to the camera without getting really shaky. There we go. It should be lined right up to the pin. Your sleeving amount should be the same every time you do this, because you're going to be measuring it the same way, and you're going to be using a standard point on this, so it should be in the same spot. And then I'm simply just going to stretch the sleeving all the way to the other side. Now, as I'm stretching to the other side, I still got a little bit of ways to go here. Now you'll see I'm pretty close to where that tool is going to be, and I know that's where it's going to be. Because if you looked at the other pin before I got to that point, this is a little bit behind now. When I looked at the pin on the other side, it was a little bit closer. So I will push it up just a little till it's pretty close. Now I can eyeball this and tell you that it's probably not close enough, so I'll push it up a little bit more, and sometimes you'll end up having, see, it's not close enough right now. I still have a little bit of a gap there, and that needs to go. So what you do with that, you just let go of this side, you go right back over to here to your opposite side, and then you just do it again. And simply, I'm just stretching that sleeve as hard as I possibly can. You know, I tend to get finger burns sometime stretching this. And I think I'm pretty close now. And you'll notice that it's closer this time, and then I'll swing my tool in there, and I'll notice I still got kind of a gap there. And you know what? I let go while I was showing you, so I got to do it all over again. Now you're probably wondering, why am I stretching the sleeve so bad, and why am I making it so tight? Well, for a bunch of different reasons. And I'll go a little bit more into depth on that when I actually do the full guide for it. But for right now, it's suffice to say that it makes the cable actually hides more color. See, re-nailed it on that one. And so I'll explain more about it here in a second, because I will get a hand cramp if I sit here and wait. Same thing as the other side. Throw in some heat shrink, bring it over to the shrink gun. Shrink it about halfway again. And finish her off. Blow her down a little bit. Now the reason you're blowing on it is because you want to cool it down, because that heat shrink is still going to be malleable, and you can totally stretch it out and it'll be out of order if you let go too soon. So if you just wait a little bit, and then you can, and see if it'll get to focus here, and you can nail it again. Looks just the same as the other side, because it would shrink just the same way. Now, all you do from here is you would go ahead and you would put that into a connector. The only tip I can give you while you're putting it in the connector is I tend to hit it with the heat gun for a couple seconds first. Literally a couple seconds. And then you just put it in there. And that is the result that you will get every single time you do this. As long as you use the tool and you take your time, it'll end up straight and looking just like that. Now we're going to do a piece of clean, or not clean cut, but we'll do a piece of paracord here really quick so you can see what that looks like. Now, paracord is, you know, it's basically shoelaces. I mean, I'm not going to lie in either way here. But sleeving it is a little bit more difficult, because MDPC has more of a plastic, malleable feel to it. Not malleable, but it's not soft but hard. If that makes sense. It completely makes sense. It's more of a material that you can put more pressure on it and you can make it do what you want to do. Part of being able to shove the pin in there is that this has some rigidity to it. Now, obviously, shoelaces don't have rigidity. It doesn't work like that. But there's ways that you can get around that to make it work the way you want to. So, just as the other one, we're going to cut it. Pretty much methods are, you know, about the same. Not too much different. And then you'll hit it up the lighter a little bit. It is especially important to do that with paracord, because that will fray like crazy. It'll make a big mess and look really stupid. So, just as with MDPC, paracord will stretch. Granted, it doesn't stretch quite as much, but it does stretch nonetheless. So we'll just go ahead and cut it here. And I'll hit it up later. And then I'll remove this dumb inside. And then you have paracord guts, which are just annoying and in the way. But I suppose it works if you're actually using it for paracord. Then you would really want those in there. Now with paracord, you don't want to just try to put on the sleeving like the other one. When you use paracord, I would completely understand doing crazy methods like using a straw. Honestly, it's not needed. You don't need to use a drinking straw to do sleeving. You know, you just simply grab a small piece of masking tape, painter's tape, pretty much any tape you have laying around. And then you just do the same thing again. Try to use as little tape as possible, because when you do, it'll go right in there pretty easy. Now, as you see, I'm not doing the same method as the other one. Because it's such a soft material, the wire will actually push itself through. And the wire I'm using here isn't for the Aspros mod, because I'm using the paracord sleeving on this. You know, sometimes it's kind of a pain in the butt to get this off of the thing here. This one actually has an extension pin on it. It has a male EPS and a female EPS. This being female, and of course this being male. This would go into the extension side. The great thing about the LC sleeving tool is that it will do all the pins that you need it to do. It will do the EPS pins, it will do the male and female Molex pins. It works out really easy. So we're going to grab some heat shrink here, and we'll go over the method for the paracord, just like all the other ones. It's really simple. Basically, by this point, you're probably like, man, this video is really long. I wish you would shut up. But as you see here, locking the pin in where it needs to be, I get it as straight as possible. Now with paracord, again, it's really soft, so I will push it up. I will hold it. Let's see if you can watch me do this. I will push it right up there, and then right when it hits, it'll stop. Just like that. Now I gotta be careful, because this will move up and down if I don't put on the heat shrink just right. And when you do that, it's a pain in the butt, because then you gotta measure it over again. And that's what makes paracord sleeving just a little bit more difficult. But if you take your time and you get it over there like that, I'm going to bring it over to the heat shrink gun. And again, if you can see this, I only shrank it a little bit. No, less is more. And then I'll shrink it the rest of the way. And I'll blow her down again. Trying to cool it off so that it stays where I want it to. And if you look at that, that is exactly what you're wanting. Now, as you can see, I did leave a little bit of a gap right there between that pin. You can barely see through it. That will make a difference. So if this was me, I'd probably undo that and I'd redo it, because you want that heat shrink to be in the same spot every single time, just not some of the time. Because if it was just some of the time, then it wouldn't look good. It wouldn't be straight. I would definitely take the time and redo it, but for the sake of this guide and time, I won't put you guys through that. So again, like I said, for the sake of time, I'm just going to plug this one side in, hit it up with a little heat, and it's a little bit more difficult because, like I said, it's not rigid like the other ones. But if you take your time and get it in there, it does click in there. And to clean it up, you just hit it up with a little bit more heat, and there you go. This one's not as clean as I would really like it, but like I said, I would have totally redid it and put it back in there. With paracord, you want to wait just a little bit longer for that pin to cool down, because if it's not rigid enough, it's not going to fit in where you want it to perfectly, and then you won't get those other results that I showed you earlier. So now you might be wondering, is this enough to actually hold that wire in there? Because part of paracord sleeving is most paracord jobs have the heat shrink way up here. It's not necessary. I use MDPC heat shrink on all my sleeving. I don't care what other sleeving material I'm using. That's what I use because it's 4:1, it has a thin wall, and it grips crazily. So I can pull on this pretty hard and it's gonna stay in there. Granted, I can't go bungee jumping with the cord, but it'll hold in there through any kind of twisting that you're gonna put this through. Granted, you're not gonna put this, you're not gonna start swinging it around. You're just gonna put this in your computer and it's gonna be for display purposes. So that was that. I also wanted to show you real quick some of these other pins, and then you're like, please stop talking. Now I'm almost done. All these pins have a little groove on them, as you can see there on that one. It has a little groove on the bottom. The tool was made to fit each and every single one of those grooves. That goes the same for the male and the female EPS ones, and that also goes true for the male and the female. I actually gotta bust out my sleeving tool because I didn't actually have this laying out like a well-prepared person would have. There it is. And I'll just pop one off on here. This is a double wire, but it really doesn't matter. On these ones, you'll see where that groove is right there? Right on the bottom of the pin. You'll put the tool in there just like all the others, and of course it'll sleeve in the same spot right there. All of the pins, the male and the female ones, have that. See if I can show you on this one. Now I think this is another male one, and I don't think I have an actual. Oh, I do. I have a male one right here. That was a female one, and this one is a male pin, for obvious reasons. And I'm not really here to talk about the birds and the bees. So, as you can see, there's that lip again. My camera likes to focus in and out as it likes, kind of does what it wants. But again, that's where you're going to sleeve it on that spot, just like I showed you on the other ones. The sleeving tools are really easy to use. It's about as simple as it gets. The rest of it is simply the little tweaks that you do in your form, the little tweaks that you do for measuring and how you heat shrink, and there's a ton of other information I completely plan on giving everybody out there, and that's simply because, again, as you've probably read in my post, I'm not here to make money. I want to see you guys get that same feeling that you get when you make something awesome and you stand back and you look at it and you think to yourself, man, that really looks cool. Or, yes, I did that. I made that. I want you guys to have the freedom and the knowledge to go ahead and make an extension instead of paying a ton of money for it. And then you can be proud of it when you display it to somebody and you can tell them, I made that. It's completely within your reach to be able to do it because it's easy, it's simple, and as long as you have the knowledge and the skills and the right tools, which you will completely have at the end of the series, then there is no excuse for you not to be able to produce something like that if you take your time. So I really thank you guys for joining me. Thank you for going through the long-winded explanation here. I hope you enjoy the rest of the series, and that's it. Thanks for joining me.